Ma.
All right. Hey, Dan, how are you today?
Great, great to meet with you today.
Yeah, gosh, we've known each other a while now, haven't we?
It's funny how the years just fly by, isn't it?
How long you think it's been? I mean, I met you when Josette and I were facilitating a course in Antioch, and you were part of that.
Yeah, that I think was that 2017 or 18, somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there, yeah. Wow. All right. Well, I've always admired your work, and I do, and your ability to speak about it directly and to really touch populations and constituencies that aren't often touched with an understanding of transformation and an understanding of well-being. So tell us a little bit about that. Tell me a little about that.
Thanks, Ma. The admiration is mutual. Let me say that. I felt like I learned so much from your guys' courses around, and especially around the just even the idea of optimal contexts for development. And so NLR in this course really informs my approach, which is to take a look at the things that have shown to be supportive for children who are not autistic, and then ask the question of how do autistic people access these same and within the context of NLR, of course, we refer to them as nourishments. So how are these accessed, and how might these be different in some way for autistic people?
Yeah, and I know you identified belongingness, at least in our work together back in the day, and continue to. And of course, NLR really sees belongingness as a central quality that's necessary for transformation. But how do you bring it into the framework of working with autistic kids
I mean,
and
I my
their families, I should say, and their family? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if I think with belonging, there are important social emotional needs that need to be met for belonging to be something that's occurring, a sense of belonging. So, and some of those social emotional needs are like a feeling of affection, a feeling good about who you are, having a sense of self-esteem, having people around you who treat you, you know, as a human being, I guess, is a big prerequisite, right? And that's important to autistic people because autistic people have been stigmatized as um, not being human, even in some cases. So this is really a recognition of the humanity of autistic people, partially in seeing that, uh, for example, autistic people do want to belong. They do want to be a part of social situations, right? It's just they access that differently. And you know, it's if if a person, say, were in a situation where they weren't being um they weren't being recognized for who they were, and their characteristics were being stigmatized. For example, say stimming. Someone sees you stimming in public, and oh, what's wrong with that guy? Right? Instantly, it's what's wrong is the question. So that's not very good for a person's self-esteem to have other people assuming there's something wrong with you. And
Excuse me, Dan, but we are, oh, beg your pardon, we are, most people who are not neurodiverse are inclined to see that as other. How do you help them bridge the gap to contact this humanity of which you're speaking and this sense of belonging?
um, how do I support autistic people to do that?
And the people around them, their educators, their parents, especially parents, come with expectations, and sometimes the autistic child doesn't fulfill those expectations, and the ways of communication require. I know I've worked with many autistic kids, and I know it took me a re-education to learn where our commonality existed, and once we had that, we could blossom together. But it did take some work. So do you have some sense of how at least in your course, you'll be able to bring that forward.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think a part of it is just, well, let's start with the recognition that autistic people do have these same needs. They do have this humanity, you know, it's present and just it's always there. So that's a part of it. And part of that, just touching base with that recognition and then understanding that maybe some of the things that we've been taught, or maybe some of the things that we bring forward from, you know, as patterns from our families of origin, maybe these things aren't going to serve us very well in some respects in raising children that are autistic, or even connecting with friends that are autistic, or you know, supporting people maybe as a teacher or something that are autistic. And they're not going to serve us specifically because we've been taught to think of the way that children are raised generally as being the correct way. And so we're we're expecting autistic children then to change to become like other children. And so a lot of the interventions that are present are about changing the autistic child, right? Instead of recognizing the child as being different, we see that these models that stigmatize autistic children really see them from a deficit perspective, right? And so just naturally, as a result of this deficit perspective, of the stigmatization, of course, there's going to be effects on self-esteem and sense of belonging. So it really comes back to that again, and I'm really glad you brought that up as a good central point, Bob, because it really comes back to that sense of belonging, you know, and because when an autistic person has to conform to non-autistic standards, that's called masking, and it's actually toxic to an autistic person to have to engage in that in a forced way. You know, so this is a big part of it is just recognizing autistic characteristics for what they are. You know, they're part of that person. That's who that person is. So if we try to eliminate them, what are we eliminating, right? And so then how do we build from strengths instead of from this deficit perspective, right? Autistic people
Well,
actually have their own
that's
unique
where
strengths.
NLR can come in. That's where NLR can really give us a leg up in the sense of here's what strengths looks like, here's what well-being looks like. And it's not couched in cultural specific terms. It's actually couched in terms of the natural unfolding of a human. And it happens, in my experience, with autistic children, just as it happens with other members of our species, other humans. It's in us and it unfolds in a certain way. And if we meet that unfolding, then there's going to be well-being both for the child and for whomever elders are connected with the child. And for parents, and I found for parents and educators to be able to drop back and look at that in themselves and look at how their own lives unfolded and what their options were and what their opportunities were in well-being gives them a lot more openness and connection in seeing what is really available in their autistic children and also being more compassionate with themselves.
Yeah, I really like the way you said that. I fully agree. And one of the things I really love about natural learning relationships is the idea that it's not just an emergence for the child; it's a co-emergence between the child and the parent. That there are benefits for the parent as well.
Big benefits, really big benefits, um, because the judgments in the culture come from our own confusions about what is really well-being and our own sense of our own abilities to transform and emerge, which are truncated often by even the, well, not by even, but by the normal notions, by the restrictions that bring forth, that normalcy brings forth. I know I live right now with my two teenage grandchildren, and we work on that all the time together. They talk about what they call code switching, and they really bring forth to me in a wonderful and very direct way that what NLR suggests that we do with them, which is activate self-reflection and bring forth certain opportunities for them, aren't present in most of their peer interactions. And so there's a challenge for them in that. And I think it helps all parents to know that that anyone is going to have a challenge in the culture to bring forth their optimal well-being, to bring forth their greatness.
Isn't that
And so I
interesting,
think
hey?
that opens up the question for parents of neurodiverse children to say, wait a minute, not everyone has opportunities and everyone has constrictions here. And how do we relate to that human to human?
Yeah. Yeah. Just as a reflection on what you're saying there, Bob, I was thinking how, it's interesting that even, neurotypical or holistic or whatever non-autistic people also struggle to access those nourishments, right?
Oh, tremendously, tremendously. Um, the curriculums in school are outdated. Teachers, of course, are overworked, all that sort of thing. But also there's legacy woundings. There's woundings in all cultures for legacy woundings. And as we learn in the African wisdom courses in Transformative Learning Foundation, they're the power over germ, the power over foundation permeates the entire society. So if we're always in transactional power relationships, where's the humanity? Where's the wholeness?
Yeah.
And I think autistic and neurodiverse children are targeted because there's a place I can have power over.
That really strikes home as a truth, because all the studies show that there's just so much more bullying and aggression towards disabled children generally, but also towards autistic children specifically. Um, and that's something something else I kind of wanted to say about NLR was that I'm doing my doctorate at Royal Roads University here, and what I found is the more research that I do into development, the more sense NLR makes. And in fact, like all of the things that you guys taught me are backed by so many countless studies that yeah, it's very affirmational to see the relevance and wisdom of NLR.
Back in the day when we started, 1984, um, it was unheard of. I mean, we were saying these things through the 80s and 90s, and your brain research hadn't even started yet in the ways it has exploded lately. And everything in brain research backs it up too. Isn't that? It's just mind blowing. There's a wonderful statement. It was in a novel by Octavia Butler in which she says, the person says, "I don't know. Truth caught me." And that's how we've always felt about NLR. We've never really had a good way to explain it. So I'm thrilled, and I'm thrilled that really thrilled that it has made its way into different rites of passage communities, because rites of passage are really important for that ceremonial opportunity to let go of the past, to say, yes, I am changing, and yes, to transform me, yes, to transform.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do in a culture that restricts and wants people in a narrow way.
I think just even thinking of development in that way, it's like a having the key to a lock that you didn't even know was there. You know what I mean? And you put it in, and
Yes,
suddenly more things. You feel like you understand better what you need to do, and as you implement it, you see it working. You see the power of it.
that it works in the communities and the worlds in which you are working, Dan, is a thrill for Josette and myself. It's just an absolute thrill for us.
Yeah,
It's
sorry.
yeah. No, please go ahead.
I was gonna say that, the group that I ran with this previously, really felt the power of it, really felt it as relevant, and really, by the end of the course um, had seen, implementing some of the interventions, and providing the nourishments, essentially, um, had already started to make some changes in the lives of their children, and that was really also quite good. I really appreciated that.
Great. Well, Transformation Learning Foundation is really dedicated to these sorts of things and to you and to the work you bring. And I'm just really happy to see that that's happening and people can actually get credit towards that will help in master's programs and even PhDs and all that sort of thing. And wow,
Pretty exciting.
pretty exciting, Dan. All right, my friend. Anything you want to say wrapping up?
Other than just, I think this is a fantastic opportunity for people to really dig in with this approach to connecting with autistic people from a developmental perspective. And I think, you know, uh, yeah, I mean, what a wonderful opportunity. And I think, and really thanks to you and Josette for, for even thinking about things in this way, right? I think that was really huge. That was a massive moment in in developmental thinking about how children grow and how people evolve.
The all we asked ourselves, Dan, is who are we if we're free of the conditioning? What does that look like if we say, just looking at the human and strip away the conditioning of any culture? What are we left with? That
Yeah,
just it was just a question that we asked. It's been a life.
such simple questions, eh?
Yeah, really. The question's always better than the answer. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. Take care, Dan.
yeah.
Thank
You
you.
too, Bob. Thanks.
Bye bye.
Find out more about upcoming courses at our website, www.transformativedynamics.org.